Episode 73, Second Nature. The boys are back. Classic bro pod style. Lucy, I've missed a couple of them, as has become a bad habit of mine. But, bro, you're still on a heater. It's good to see you.
Thanks, man. These conversations we've been having on the pod recently with all the guests have been really fun because instead of being an interrogation, I feel like a lot of them are just people comparing notes. And I think
Totally.
maybe that's what makes it good is that I'm not trying to like pepper someone with questions, although I have questions for people. I want to compare notes and see if I'm doing the right stuff, if I should be switching up my status, or I don't know. I just feel like it's good to compare notes with people more often than not, and makes it feel hopefully like we're at coffee just riffing on stuff as opposed to being in a interview in a sterile room just like I don't know.
Well, I remain self conscious about the fact that the episodes are a lot better when I'm not around.
Oh,
And
come
I
on.
felt that way the last couple. And actually, with the Corinne podcast, Corinne Malcolm, I listened to it feeling like it's a very good thing that I'm actually not there because Corinne and I know each other so well that like you brought a different perspective to things that I feel like I would have probably stepped all over. And I think that back and forth was very valuable for as a listener in that conversation. And the Christian Pepper dial creator convo too was very similar. I feel like I would have been taking up space in that amazing riff that you guys had together about how to create content in these niche passion driven sports. And he and I are now homies on LinkedIn, so it's LinkedIn official, so it's
Very
all good.
cool.
I didn't even have to be on the pod.
It was really interesting to talk to Corinne because I'd never I guess we'd exchanged a couple emails and DMs in the past back in my Red Bull days, which she was quick to remind me. But
I love that she just went straight in and blasted you for not signing her to Red Bull.
oh man.
It was
I,
all in good fun, obviously.
it was.
Yeah.
But it is funny that, we're Corinne and I are two of your closest collaborators on so many different things.
Yeah.
But for some reason we'd never actually spoken to each other. Which was really fun to finally connect, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with her in person at TrailCon or maybe another race
Yeah.
this year. So.
She's a force of nature. So to our audience who is unfamiliar with trail running media, Corinne is in a category of her own. She is very, very talented at what she does.
Yeah, that was a really fun discussion just between the two of us, and again, just sort of comparing notes on stuff, and yeah, that one and all the pods have been so fun lately. I've been really enjoying everyone we've gotten on, got a chance to talk to, and yeah, more to come. We got some cool people up our sleeve.
Hell yeah. All right, awesome. Launching into the docket here today. Let's start with the World Champions jersey sitting just over your left shoulder. Friend of the program, Kate Courtney, potentially future guest of the program. Kate Courtney was making some news in the mountain biking world last week. I know you have thoughts on this as the person who kind of originally identified the unique talent that she has in her athletic ability. So get us started with this. What's up with Kate?
So Kate announced this week the launch of She Sends Racing, which is basically her foundation is called She Sends, and it's all about getting women and girls on mountain bikes and getting them out onto two wheels. And she's had this foundation going for a little bit, but what she wanted to do going into this season was a lot different from what athletes are doing in all of mountain biking. So most people sign up to be in a factory race team. And in that factory setting, like we've talked about in previous pods, they hand you the bike, they've got the mechanic on staff, they've got the, nutrition, the masseuse, the team management handled, the components figured out. You have to do a lot of work to get yourself race ready, but on race day, a lot of the stuff is sort of like built in so that you don't have to worry about it. And there's a team built up around you. You're not in the sponsor negotiations for a lot of the stuff, and you can just focus in on being a good racer, which is ultimately what Kate has been doing for a very long time. She raced for Specialized, and she joined Scott, and she's been on these really awesome programs that have taken good care of her, but have also given her everything she needs to be successful. And in that situation, what you trade is some autonomy with what parts and bikes you want to ride, but you also trade like sort of what you stand for. You are essentially there to represent that team that factory, that brand that is paying the bill for the factory race team. And that feels like a fair trade for most people. The other route you can go is to be fully privateer, which still involves some level of sponsorship where you couldn't really watch a race and necessarily pick out the difference between a privateer and a factory racer in most cases. But what Kate did was completely different in that the factory, the main featured person, brand, whatever you want to call it, on her jersey now is going to be her foundation she sends. And so what she's doing is basically making a statement with her racing and taking all of the attention that's getting funneled towards her and pushing it into, instead of a specific brand, into the foundation, and using her racing in a way that's going to draw more attention to this foundation, which will ideally open up more opportunities for her to produce programs that get more girls on bikes, which is really exciting. And I think if she can connect the dots in a meaningful way, and if she can execute on where she's headed with it, this could be a really interesting new model. Imagine having basically this focus, this ethos, this effort that all your energy is going into, that's not necessarily a business, but a vision,
a foundation. Okay, I want to come back to the foundation in a second, because the comment you just made strikes me as very surprising, and that will be the anchor logo on a jersey that I'm sure is going to be cluttered with other logos, including from very big brands, including Rivian, Rapha, and Allied. It looks like she announced all new partnerships across her bike itself, apparel, and obviously electric vehicle. Anything you want to share about the package of that, and like maybe why Kate is the right fit, especially for something like Rivian, which is non-endemic?
Yeah, the Rivian deal is probably the biggest deal in there. Everything else is sort of like, okay, she needs a bike sponsor, she needs a component sponsor, Red Bull's sticking around, like everybody that you'd expect her to be running. Like, she needs those components to exist. The Rivian one is the most surprising, and what's awesome about it is that in the 90s, when we were in the high times of athlete sponsorship in the mountain bike industry, every factory team had a car brand attached to it. It was Volvo, Cannondale, Schwinn, Toyota, GT, Lexus, I think, or Acura, I forget. Anyway, everybody had a car sponsor at that stage, and then everything like fell apart, and then we didn't have that anymore. And there really haven't been a lot of car brands involved in the mountain bike space since then. So the fact that there is a brand coming back into mountain biking is pretty exciting on its own. Now, the thing that I kind of question is how to execute upon these partnerships so that the brands feel like they're getting their due. And I don't ever believe that the logo on the jersey is the reason why. And I feel like the execution, the activation of the partnership is the most important thing. And the thing that we're not aware of yet, which we'll get Kate on the pod and we'll ask her more about this. And, she just announced these partnerships, so there's probably still more to come. But what does the activation on Rivian's side actually look like? Are they going to be displaying the truck at the World Cup? Are they going to be creating a content series with her on their channel? Is she going to spin up a content series on her channel where it's heavily featured? There's a lot of questions that are mostly related to content and activation that haven't been answered yet. Again, they just announced the partnership, but do I think that you could make this partnership go just based off of Instagram following, which Kate has probably the biggest or one of the biggest Instagram followings in mountain biking?
550,000. I've got her Instagram up right now.
I'm not sure that's going to do all the work, all the heavy lifting that a brand like Rivian might be expecting. And so what does the activation look like with the foundation is probably the right question to ask. How does the foundation tie into Rivian? And is that something where they're really activating in the brand sense through that? Could be the answer. And again, it's early days. We don't really know. And maybe they are doing this because they want to put their flag in the sand with mountain biking and they want to support Kate. And, they haven't figured it out yet either. I don't know. There's a lot of questions, and that's really what it's going to come down to is like, what is the execution of this whole thing going to look like? Because the announcement is awesome and the hope and dream of what we want this to be is out there. But now it's like, okay, now what? Like, let's see this thing come together.
Yeah.
The marketer in me is absolutely frothing right now.
So did Kate tell you herself, or did she make a public announcement about the fact that the She Sends logo is going to be the main logo on her jersey?
Oh, I guess it hasn't been announced yet. Whoops. Can we bleep that out?
Breaking news.
I've seen the jersey and it looks awesome. I've, been close personal friends with Kate for a long time, so I don't think I'm actually like dropping any exclusive here. But when she did the initial announcement when she was leaving Scott, and then I'm starting my own race team, that was the intention of the whole thing, is to make this be about She Sends, not about, what factory I'm racing for.
Yeah. Well, I asked because it's interesting and parallels a conversation we've had a million times here on the podcast of when athletes transcend their sport to the degree that they, basically center their own projects, their own logos on their bodies rather than outsourcing those logos to brands that pay them. Obviously, Kate has a lot of brands that recognize the value in how she can help them have their products be commercially successful in the mountain biking market. But now it's incredible that rather than start her own apparel brand, for example, she'll have her own logo on her chest, but it's not a logo that's selling anything. It's a logo that is attached to a broader, bigger, deeper mission that it seems like she's really passionate about.
I think this could be interesting for other people to approach, because there's been factory racing, there's been privateer racing. I would make this a third tier where it's like, how can I appropriately support a foundation or a mission through my efforts competitively? And what does that mean? And how do I execute on that? I think this is like a third way to approach that.
Off the top of my head, thinking of athletes who have foundations, Kate comes to mind, Kilian Jornet comes to mind, and Alex Honnold comes to mind. And as you know, Aaron, my sister-in-law is the executive director of the Honnold Foundation.
Yep.
And we definitely want to get Emily here on the show to talk about that. But it seems like that would be a fun, I don't know, just like topic that we could explore over many episodes of just using outdoor recreation and a lot of the business stuff that we talk about here on the show to then further a deeper mission like those of She Sends, the Kilian Jornet Foundation, and the Alex Honnold Foundation.
Also, we got to shout out our homie. Rebecca Rush has a foundation
Of
called
course.
Be Good that's done some really incredible stuff too.
Any other foundations led by athletes that come to the top of your mind?
Put me on the spot. I'm sure there are many.
Yeah, I'm sure like Kelly Slater has one, and
Yeah.
probably like Travis Rice and snow sports.
Yeah. And then, of course,
Jeremy Jones. Remember?
That's right.
Protect Our Winters.
just a little foundation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great example. Protect Our Winters. Yeah.
Well, a new day for the great Kate Courtney. I want to pepper you with more questions about her, but let's save that for when she comes on the show. Because again, Aaron was the one who brought her into the Red Bull family. Remember that lunch that we all had probably 10 years ago?
Yeah.
It was like right after she and I had both been signed. She was still at school at Stanford at the time.
Yeah. My wife, Kara, was there, and I think Violet was there as like a baby. It's wild to think about that. Yeah. It was like early days. It just happened to be in town and we all got together.
Time flies.
That's funny, man. I was talking to somebody, I think I was talking to Corinne about this, of the true story of the first time you and I met, and what that was like, and we've heard like your version, but my version was vastly different. So
yeah.
Future pod episode.
Lifelong friends now at this point.
Yeah, you're stuck with me.
Yeah, buddy. Okay, let's get to the big topic of today's show. You set this up for us, Aaron, because you're going to be sort of leading this one.
Okay, we're talking about 2025. We've done the predictions. We've done the awards from last year. I had a moment today where I realized, like, well, wait, we're almost all the way through January. That went fast. We've past the limit of the point where it's okay to say hope you had a good holiday, and we're like everybody's dug out of their email. Like it's no longer an excuse anymore. As of today, listening to this podcast, you're not allowed to say, hey, hope you had a good holiday. I just got caught up because it's
Happy New Year.
it's the end of January. We're done with that. So I had a couple different things that I wanted to talk about, but one of the things that I love to do at the end of the year is my friend James Jackson has this account called Mantle Mindset, and he always posts this thing that's basically his sort of like themes from the year or just like inspiring lines and stuff. And so where I want to go is I want to read you my favorite ones from him and have you react. And then what I want to do is flip into, let's talk about how we're starting off 2025 and how we're thinking about stuff. We've had a chance to reflect. We've had a chance to get started. We've sent all the hope you had a good holidays emails. And I think it might be interesting just to like compare and contrast how you're thinking about this year, coming off a pretty successful year with Free Trail, and then how I'm thinking about this year where I'm still kind of like first pancake problems.
Yep.
So if that's okay, maybe we'll start there. I got to
Okay, so what's the clean brand for this? This is the Lutzi's top 10 inspirational mindset heuristics of 2025.
I guess so. I've completely lifted this from James Jackson. I can take zero credit. And just for context.
Okay, so James Jackson's top 10 life-changing frameworks.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Okay, and let me also put into context who James is, because he runs an Instagram called Mantle Mindset, and that's like an entire program on its own. But what's more important for you to know is that if you've ever watched the X Games or Red Bull Rampage and you see a guy standing next to a top athlete, kind of like whispering in his ear before he drops in, that's James Jackson. Red Bull hires this guy to get into the heads of their top athletes and help them prepare mentally for doing like the gnarliest things in snowboarding, mountain biking, you name it. This is the guy that helps you get your mind right before you do the craziest stuff.
Okay.
Incept
us.
Yes, not just these. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to read off, because my vision board that I have, which I haven't updated in a very long time, but this is what I look at when I start every morning, is this list of these phrases. And it's working, I think. I don't know. I feel like I want to share it as a way to kind of kick off this year. Let me start off with one of my favorites. Fear is a misuse of your imagination. Feel free to react, or I can just keep going here.
I like that one.
Right?
Yeah.
These are all just like, ooh.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because fear is usually based on anxiety about what's going to happen in the future, and you're using your imagination when you're looking to the future. So yeah. Fear is a misuse of that imagination. You could be imagining something amazing, right?
There's a really good Stoic philosophy thing around this too. Like, don't suffer the thing before it happens, because that suffering will be more than even the worst case scenario. Yep. Okay. Find an excuse to succeed. Okay, I lifted this next one, which I use for my mountain bike stuff. Practice makes progress. I think I made a jersey with that on it once.
Oh, yeah.
Behavior precedes success. Long-term consistency is greater than short-term intensity.
Yep.
You've probably heard this one before. How you do anything is how you do everything. That one hits. Failing, first attempt in learning.
Whoa.
Right. Trying is having an intention to fail. What you resist persists.
So this is all on your vision board.
Yeah, this is what I wake up to every morning. I just wanted to share it because I feel like it's a good, like, set your intention for 2025 and like go get it. The best way to predict the future is to create the future.
Are you able to share screen and so we can look at these together?
I will take the screenshot of my little whatever, and I'll put it in our Slack channel for everyone to
text
enjoy.
It to me right now, and we can look at them and go back and forth a little bit here.
This is what's like front and center on the vision board. This is the actual center of the whole thing. I just find this stuff so helpful just to like reframe, just to give me perspective, just as like a mantra for the day or the week or the year or whatever. The practice makes progress thing kind of fits perfectly with a lot of the teaching that I do on my YouTube channel. But honestly, like the worrying is a misuse of your imagination. I use that one with my daughter all the time because she gets like so in her head about stuff, and that seems to kind of pull her out of it.
These are great, man. Behavior precedes success.
I feel like the what you resist persists must resonate with the last year of your life.
Totally. Yeah, I was going to mention that too because we've talked about it here on the podcast, but just next to me here on the floor is the book Radical Acceptance, which I read a few months ago, and that's kind of the whole purpose or message of the book is just we hold on so tight in life, and at some point the best thing you can do is just like let go, let off the reins a little bit. And when you're in that fight or flight mode and you're resisting the emotions or the reality that is around you, that eventually, like just by holding on, you're sort of guaranteeing that those circumstances are going to perpetuate into the future.
There's a thing that Kara was talking to me about. She said she'd heard it somewhere and she was repeating it for me. She said that what would if people were watching your life as a movie, what would the audience be yelling at you right now? And that was good context of like, yeah, they'd probably be telling me to chill out.
Yeah. It brings up a fun story from my athletic career, if you don't mind me sharing. I've probably shared this with you in the past, but remember in 2019 when I broke my ankle?
I do.
It sent me into a tailspin emotionally. And that year I was supposed to run the Hard Rock 100, remember? It ended up being canceled due to snowpack. But it was my first opportunity to run the race after trying to get in for 10 years. And luckily the race had been canceled, but I was basically pushing myself to try and be prepared for it to the point where I just exacerbated this hideous ankle injury. And after Hard Rock got canceled, instead of using it as like, oh, thank goodness, like let me take my foot off the gas here, recover, get myself healthy, and then point at a different race, I instead signed up for UTMB. I was like, all right, let's go for it. And of course, my training was awful. My foot and ankle were a complete mess. And my friend Mile Backhausen came to visit me in Aspen, where I was training for the summer. And we were out on a run. And I was just kind of lamenting my whole situation. And he said something that was so simple and so perfect, which is just like, hey, if you were like counseling a young athlete who was going through the same thing, what would you say to that young athlete? And it was like, oh, of course. I would tell that athlete to just freaking get healthy, hang up the shoes for a couple months, get in the rehab, physical therapy gym, and, the body will come around. And at that point, you can start setting goals and dominating the trails again. And that night, I went home, emailed UTMB and said, hey, I'm not going to be able to race this year. I'm injured. So sometimes it is the simplest reframing, or, in that case, just forcing you to take yourself and your ego out of the consideration and ask, well, if somebody else was in this situation, what would you say to them?
The best part about that story is how Hard Rock went the following year.
2 years later.
2 years later.
Yeah.
That was the moment. There's a picture of you just doing a salutation of the mountains and the sun at the top of one of the biggest peaks in that race. And you could feel through that photo exactly how it must have felt for you, of just like, ah.
Yeah.
That was such a moment to witness. That was so special.
Yeah. And I've pretty much been retired ever since. So
hey, if you're going to go out, that's the way to go. That's the way to go.
Anything else on these James Jackson frameworks that we want to explore? One other good one from James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, whose book is perennially on the New York Times top bestsellers list, is you don't, what is it? It's you don't rise to the level of your ambitions, you fall to the level of your systems, right?
Yep.
So, in other words, you can set big goals, but if you don't have the behaviors to get you there, you'll fall to the level of the behaviors that you exhibit in your daily life. It doesn't matter what your ambitions are, you're not going to achieve them if you don't have the right habits, behaviors, and systems.
Behavior precedes success. That was in there somewhere.
Exactly.
I'll put that screenshot in the Slack channel when we drop this episode for everyone to dig in, and then I'll put James's account because he posts all kinds of wisdom like that. But I find I need a little boost like that every year or so, just a little reminder, some fresh updates to the old operating system in my mindset. You know, it's
Look
good
at
to
us. We're pretty much two motivational speakers here on the podcast here today.
Okay, well, we're in this situation of also counseling younger us.
Yeah.
Talk to me about 2025 using maybe that as framework, but how are you thinking about this year? Because like I said, you guys did great last year. You smashed it, but now you got to do it all over again. You got to go to some of the same races. You got to execute on the same stuff. You're still doing podcasts. You're still making videos. How are you thinking about your approach to 2025? And I guess most importantly, are you changing anything?
Yes. So this week we've been doing a lot of mapping things out on the calendar and planning about, okay, what are the projects that we have going on? When are we going to need to build in some rest? And what is becoming abundantly clear is that it is going to be another very, very busy year. And as I've talked about here and in other places, 2024 was pretty overwhelming and sort of burnout inducing. And so if I'm carrying the same workload in 2025, if we are carrying the same workload in 2025, how can we implement better systems to ensure that it feels a little bit more sustainable and less overwhelming than it did in 2024? A few things that I'm working on, Aaron, is systems, behaviors, habits, specifically around time management, which I've never been good at, really staying disciplined with. And a few things that come to mind is just sort of when I make myself available to do external meetings, of which I have a million requests. And I'm the type of person that I want to satisfy every request that comes in, because not only is it usually coming from somebody who I care about and who I want to, maintain a positive relationship with and who I want to just connect with, but also, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe there's some cool opportunity here. And I think one of my major failings is that I'm always looking to do more and more and more and more without, keeping the main thing, and ensuring that my focus is really on the right thing to be focused on. And so just having specific times in my week where I'm available to take meetings, and otherwise I'm just not available to take any meetings. Also, just blocking the deep work time. What I'm really going to be trying to do is keep from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. deep work time only. If I'm going to be doing meetings or podcasts or other administrative work with my business, doing that in the afternoon, and keeping the morning is like I can sit down, be quiet, be creative, read, listen, learn, and prepare for podcasts, do the things that really drive and move the needle for Free Trail. So that's, I guess, top of mind things that I'm thinking about for 2025. What I'm nervous about is that it is going to be another busy year, and that I want to make sure that I can remain in a healthier state for the full 12 months. And it's really a commitment that I've made to myself and my family, and I can't fail it this year. So, yeah, that's a couple of things.
I'm curious to know, do you have KPIs for your business? KPIs,
No.
it's called a key performance indicator for those listening that don't know. I wonder if that would be a helpful tactic for you. It's of course very like corporate or whatever, but I also think that like the KPI is sort of in a way the sort of color by numbers of like, okay, here's if I'm going to get to X amount in business, I need to have these are the elements that need to exist. I'm going to need to, you know, sell this much in sponsorships. I'm going to need to have this many podcasts. I'm going to need to have this many live events. I'm going to have this many, you know, other, special events or special podcasts or whatever. And you start to kind of like take your overarching goals. Some people call them OKRs. You have your overarching goals that are like, we want to have this many pieces of output. This is how much money we want to bring in. Here's how we're going to get to those main goals. And then you kind of break it down into little pieces like, okay, well, if I need to get to this point with this many podcasts or this many events or whatever, what are the steps I need to take to do that? And not just me, but like my team who is involved in this KPI for the company, this one, this one, this one.
Mm-hmm.
And then what are their individual KPIs to make sure that we meet that, whether it's a financial target or an output target, so that you know how well you're tracking. And what you could do is you could look at your 2024 output in terms of how much sponsorship you sold, how many episodes of the podcast you put out, how many events you did, and you could track against that if that makes sense. And then, maybe inflate like, oh, okay, let's go plus 10% on this or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that having that, because usually at a corporation, you do like a mid-year check-in, but you could even quarterly check in to see how are we tracking towards our plan. Because the thing that I think kind of spins you out and a lot of people is that you're just like going for it
just
as hard
don't
as
have
you
a
possibly
plan.
can.
Yep.
Yeah. And you're like, I don't know, let's see how far we can go.
Yep.
But then that's sort of a recipe for exactly the burnout that you had. And so instead of being like, let's see how big this number can get, maybe it's like, okay, here's the number that we're trying to get to with the business.
Yep.
Here are the steps that we could take. And if we're doing this, and this right, then we should be fine. This should work. If we're not getting to that number, let's build like a little intermediate plan to get us to that number or to get us to that output that we need to get to. And I feel like the idea of sort of business planning against those goals and that structure may also just give you better peace of mind, but not only you, like the rest of your team too, to know. And if you bring someone else in too, just to like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. Anything else is sort of gravy.
Yeah. This is such a great point and a good organic riff session that we're having here, because we haven't really talked about this very much, just you and I, when we spend time on the phone. But in 2024, we had sort of a pie in the sky revenue target, but with no systems or strategy to get there. We ultimately accomplished the goal at the 11th hour, like at the very end of 2024, which was a big victory for us, but felt more like luck and sheer brute force to get there rather than any intelligent strategy and operation behind it. One thing that we're about to do, I don't know if I've told you about this, Aaron, is we're about to do a full day-long immersive consulting session with an EOS implementer. Do you know anything about the Entrepreneur Operating System?
Oh, tell me all about it.
So I don't know that much about it, except that it's basically like a ready-made formula that you can just plug into your business to help you have a more streamlined operation.
Wow.
And so for me, it actually is downstream of the experience that I had at the Huffman process, where it was like, oh, like this thing exists that can help me. I don't have to reinvent a wheel in order to get to know myself better. In that case, this was like, oh, sort of the same fundamental idea of this is a ready-made formula that thousands of businesses use already. In fact, I think I brought it up. Oh, no, I didn't bring it up, but Scratch operates with it. And my friend Ellie Pell sent me a couple of books about it, who had worked at Scratch. And so after the Huffman processes, we were thinking about 2025 and how I could remain in a better state throughout the year and, not sacrifice the health and potential of our business. It was like, this is the kind of thing that would drastically relieve stress by virtue of the fact that it would just incorporate a bit more structure and consistency and routine into what has been a fairly herky-jerky, flailing But like, you know, like we're doing a good job, but it's, yeah, I don't know, without a ton of organized structure behind it. And I feel like for the entire team, it's going to be hugely positive. And it is like actually a pretty big investment for us, but I think it's going to be massively, massively impactful for, sort of keeping us on track towards those KPIs. Because as
Yeah.
far as I know, part of it is like, okay, what is your 1 year goal, your 3 year goal, and I guess on the shorter term time horizon, your 90-day goal, your 1 month goals, things like that. And then you have a system of like when you check in of how you're tracking to those goals. And then obviously once you're checking in, then you can course correct. You can evaluate, are we on track for this? No, why not? What do we need to change? We are on track for this? Sweet. How can we accelerate? Should we pour more gasoline on the fire? Should we devote more resources? Those are the types of things that we have just not allowed ourselves the time to really do with our business, because we have to this point basically said yes to everything, figured it out on the fly, and it's gotten us to this point. But it's like the classic, what got you here won't get you there. Now we have to say no to a lot more things, and this is kind of a process that might help us say yes to the right things, no to the right things, and the things that we say yes to point towards them with a lot more focus and intention that would ideally set us up to be more successful in those projects. I'm very excited about it.
That's so cool. Well, it sounds like that's the structure, right? Like this idea of KPI is nothing new, but it is a structure, and it seems like that's you're probably just going to get it, but by a different name in this scenario. But I think that it's going to help you out a ton to have that kind of thing, because what you did do, which was the most important, which is the hardest lift, right? You found product market fit. You figured out what you need to do to build a business to be able to support you and the whole crew. And now it's like, okay, let's now optimize it. Let's now make it into something, and then let's make decisions moving forward that maybe aren't going to like quadruple the size of the business, but it's going to make us not want to go completely insane, or make us have the system that we can evaluate. Do we add another team member, or what would need to be true for that to happen, or whatever else it is. So
yeah, that's true too. Like I spend zero time in spreadsheets. Like it's just not how my brain works. And it's funny because this lack of a framework, I think, may be the critical component that leads to the feeling of burnout, overwhelming stress. And thinking back to being an athlete, one of the beauties of being an athlete, especially when you have a really great coach, is that you have the program and you're just running the program every day. And it takes the psychological stress of what should I be doing out of the picture. And so effectively this EOS thing could be seen as like my training plan for business, more or less, where ideally I'm not so bogged down in like, what should we be doing? What should I be doing right now? But that like we've made that decision, we're going towards it. And then we check in occasionally to see how it's going, just like I would with my coach on like a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
Yeah, I love it, man. That's exciting. I mean, everybody aspires to be in that position where it's working. Like there's nothing from last year that was like a windfall and you're trying to like repeat, fingers crossed, like what you need to do to keep the business afloat. It's not going to be easy always, but you at least like have momentum now, and you've been, you've got the fit and you know what you need to do. And yeah, sure, there'll be bumps and stuff along the way, but at least like you've got a fair idea of what needs to happen to keep the lights on.
What about you, bro?
You know what's funny? I had this moment talking to one of my friends about a week ago where he was asking me, we were both ex Red Bull guys, and business planning is like a big thing over there. It starts in like April and it ends in November, it seems. So a lot of your year is spent mapping stuff out and thinking about how you're going to spend your time, your allocation, your budget, everything. And he was asking me because he obviously knows that I'm making a lot of content both for here and for Super Rider, and trying to figure out how to, make it all make sense financially. And he was like, well, what's your business plan look like? And just like you, I had just been grinding, thinking like, all right, I'm just going to like keep doing this stuff. And for me, I don't necessarily know if I have product market fit. I think Second Nature has found an audience, which is really exciting. And we could keep doing these episodes as long as we want. But Super Rider, I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. What is the actual thing? This is the first year that I have paying sponsors. This is the first year that I have more of a vision besides doing tutorial content. This is, I'm pitching super, super hard on a lot of different things that I'm trying to do. But what I didn't have was an actual plan. I'm in the phase of trying to like do the, like get off the ground with this whole thing. And I think that's partially why my wife was like, what would the audience be yelling at you right now? Because I'm not flailing by any means, but actively just grinding my face off, trying to find product market fit, trying to find the right partners who value what I'm doing and want to work together, and then finding the new partners who are willing to support the vision of where I'm trying to go. So I think I'm trying to do a lot of stuff, and I've really hit the ground running really hard this year. And I have actually, if I look over on my whiteboard, the top line says Reign of Terror, which I think I mentioned it before, but the Reign of Terror for me is basically when I stay up super late and I don't leave this office until I get the job done that I need to do. And so actually all four of the things underneath Reign of Terror are different courses that I want to put together. So I want to put together a sponsorship course, and I've been working with some people from our community to sort of get all the structure ready for that. And I have some other courses that I want to build out because, as you know, like our best Galaxy brain so far was this idea of brand camp. And so where I want to go with it to start and build the foundation for it is like, well, what if I made like a digital version of that where we could offer some of that stuff now and then build on that and build on that to the point where then we could do a real life one.
Yep.
So, building a course is no small feat by any means. I'm looking at 4 that I want to build, which is biting off way more than I could probably chew in any short amount of time. But yeah, like I, again, haven't found the perfect fit for all this stuff that I'm doing. And so I'm trying everything. And then, of course, we've got our secret project, which eventually we'll be able to talk about. So there's a lot of irons in the fire right now, but nothing's ready to pull out. And I think that's sort of what's driving me a little crazy right now, because I'm like, okay, I'm putting in just maximum effort, full Reign of Terror on like 6 different things, but nothing is really popping yet. But I know that if I just keep doing all of these things, I'm going to be in a position a year from now that I'm going to be like having to say no to stuff. But I don't believe that until I get there. I don't know. Like I might find myself in a place where I'm over my head.
Yeah, well, that's the reality of things. And as I said just a second ago, we went from being in a position where we had to say yes to everything, no matter how small the budget was and no matter how much work it entailed, to the point now where, we're lucky to have more work coming in than we can sustain. And so it just takes a long time, though, to get between those 2 points. And as we've talked about here on the podcast a lot, even when you get past the point of like, why do I have to say yes to everything? It doesn't end up becoming easier or like really clear as to what you should be doing all the time. And like just the infinite game mindset and the lack of clarity is it's just the nature of it, It's just like you have to be. And I suck at it, frankly. I am so bad at like just feeling at peace with where I am.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why I've always have this like never satisfied, more mindset that I'm really trying to divorce myself from. And I think it's born out of, like just self-defense kind of evolutionary lizard brain, of like protect yourself, protect your family, find stability, and it just doesn't exist.
I think you're totally right. I think if I'm honest with myself, I'm going through sort of first pancake problems. We talked about it on a previous pod, this idea of you can mix the perfect batter, but usually the first batch of pancakes gets burnt or it's gross or it sticks to the pan. And then the next batch is better. So I really think like next January, will I be in the same place? No way. There's zero chance. Like there's no way I'm gonna be December 31st with $0, income from the year. Like it's gonna work. It's all gonna
Yeah.
come together. Everything's gonna be great. But it's just until I get a little momentum, I feel like I'm gonna be really frustrated. And then yeah, I would love to have the opposite problem, but
Yeah.
who knows? It's a difficult place like to be in. Like you're in a position where you at least know what you need to do to get to that baseline. I'm still figuring it out, so I'm a couple steps behind. I have no doubt that I'll get there and that you'll continue to grow and do your thing. But even that, like the advice that you'd give a younger version of yourself, or what would the audience be yelling at you? Like, yeah, no, I know, but also I've got to try, I've got to push, and I've got to see what's actually going to stick, what's actually going to work.
Yeah.
Maybe nobody takes these courses. Maybe people aren't interested in a course about how brands should work with athletes in the most efficient way. I think it's good. I think I have a lot to say on it. If you listen to this podcast, you probably get about 40% of that already. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's awesome. Maybe it's
Yeah. One thing that's always been a comforting phenomenon in my career is my intuition. Like having a deep knowing that I'm doing the right thing, even in those times when it's like, God, I can't sustain this another month. I need to literally check myself into a mental institution. I still have always had that deep knowing of like, no, this is the right thing. Like I'm moving in the right direction. I'm doing what
yeah.
I'm supposed to be. And so that's got to be the guide. And I feel that certainly with Freetrail, and I have since the very beginning. I feel that here with Second Nature, with our secret project, man. Like there's no guarantee, but I feel like it's an idea that
Yeah.
it has to be tried. Let's just say that. So,
Yeah.
I'm sure, I guess the question for you is this, like, do you feel that with Super Rider?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I believe that all the things we're working on will be successful. I don't know how long it's going to take for that to take hold, but I do feel confident that we're working on the right things, that we're trying to solve the right problems, that we're in the right conversations. Everything feels like it's moving in the right direction. I'm just, if I'm honest, I'm probably just being impatient, but I don't want to be too kind to myself and then get to like the end of the summer and be like, oh, I should probably figure this out.
Yeah.
So I think there's like a fine balance between pushing yourself and pushing yourself too hard. And I'm trying to really keep myself in check, but at the same time, I'm trying to be honest with myself and be like, you need to get this stuff up and running. You need to explore every possible avenue. You need to find the right partners and the right people who are on board for all the projects you're working on. So yeah, lots of stuff, but I also do believe that by January of next year, it'll be a different conversation.
Well, your comment about the summer makes me remember to tell you, bro, you better save the date for TrailCon this year.
It's on my calendar. I actually do have, I got a dry erase calendar.
We gotta have Doug Emsley on to chit chat all about it. But TrailCon is going to be a big deal this year. Obviously,
Yes.
Brendan Madigan, our other partner, has been on the show before, and we're mapping out all of the concepts and content, and it's going to be a big fun extravaganza. And we already have your name penciled in multiple places.
Good.
So,
I'm in. I've got it on my calendar. I will be at TrailCon. There's
Okay.
no excuse this year.
all right. Well,
I'm
maybe
excited. That's probably going to be the first time, I guess, Sea Otter, because we do have a handful of people here from the bike industry that listen to the show. But other than Sea Otter, probably TrailCon's the first time I'm going to get a chance to meet most of the people that listen to this podcast in person, which I'm actually really excited about.
Yep.
You get the feedback in person all the time when you're at all these big events, and I don't get to go to UTMB or any of that fun stuff. So I think it'll be fun. I hope it'll be fun.
Oh, it'll be great. Cool. You told me you had a mini Galaxy brand. Should we get to that before BPC?
Sure. I don't know if it's mini or if it's, I don't know. I just think it's entertaining and maybe you'll get a kick out of it. I had this like flash of inspiration and then I Googled it and I found a couple things that are kind of like that, but I'll just put this out there. Again, just because it's Galaxy brand doesn't mean we need to do it. And we need another project like we need a hole in the head. So,
Yeah.
okay. I was in China last year, whatever, and one of the things that was awesome was there was a teapot in our room. I'm not much of a tea guy, but they had the coffee, instant coffee that you could put
Yep.
in hot water, right?
Yep.
And actually, it was really good. I stole a couple of them from the hotel and brought them home.
Uh-huh.
And even though they had coffee there at the hotel, it doesn't matter. Like I was in my room and I just got a little extra boost.
Yep.
Anyway, I love instant coffee, and I didn't realize that I loved it until that very moment. But the thing is, I don't actually drink hot coffee ever. I did it out of necessity.
Really?
Because,
Are you a cold brew guy?
all day.
No way.
Oh my god.
Thrower's a CB till the day he dies type guy too. Won't even look at hot coffee.
Yeah. I've gotten the like double look from my friends because they're like, oh, Portland guy, cold brew only, huh? But actually, that makes a lot of sense because I offered Ryan a cold brew when he stayed at our house a couple weeks ago, and his eyes lit up. So that would explain it. I'm cold brew through and through, and there's a reason. Like cold brew actually, I believe, has more caffeine, and the way that it's made doesn't release the same oils, so it's actually like easier on your stomach.
Yeah, less acidic is what they say.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and also it's
So how
easy-
do you brew it at home?
Yes. So we have this thing. I'll put a link in the show notes for this.
Is this
one,
your
but
BPC?
No. But anyway, like there's like a little. It looks like a little chemistry experiment, but you basically grind up the beans and put it in this little mesh thing in the middle, and then you fill
Fill it
the
up
thing
with water. I used
water.
to own the same thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. We've gone through like 3 of those at this point. But they're awesome and it gets the job done, and that's all I really need. Anyway, so I love the idea of instant coffee, but it also requires you to find hot water, which isn't that convenient. And also, I don't like hot coffee. So why isn't there instant cold brew?
What?
How can I get this? Because you can usually find cold water. And then I doubt that instant coffee plus cold water is that good. Plus, it's gone through a completely different process that's not cold brew process. So I think there's a couple brands out there that are trying to make it, but wouldn't it be awesome to just have like a little packet that you could just like you
It
take
tastes
like
like coffee. It has caffeine.
Yeah.
But you just mix with cold water.
yeah, like you like think about all those different sticks of like, hydration stuff or whatever that you have already. Just give me that, but cold brew coffee mixture.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
Have you heard of Alpine Start?
No.
It was started by Matt Siegel, who was a TNF athlete for a long time. Not sure if he still is, a rock climber based in Boulder, Colorado. And I'm pretty sure they do a lot of business now, but it's basically like an instant coffee company. It was. I haven't checked in on what they're doing closely now. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a lot more products, but kind of a brilliant thing that was probably born out of him just wanting an easy caffeine option when he's camped out at the crag for 3 weeks projecting some boulder route. And I'm pretty sure it's like a decently sized CPG business now.
Does he have a cold brew option, or is it
I don't know. Cease and desist, Matt. This is our Galaxy brand here.
That's the thing. Like,
I have the perfect brand name for it too.
What you got?
Well, I don't even want to say because
Okay.
it's the brand name that I wanted to call this podcast at first that you vetoed.
I vetoed. Sorry. Yeah,
But wouldn't that be perfect for the cold brew?
that'd be pretty good.
If it didn't
like it.
if it didn't bring up personal trauma for you.
If it didn't start with, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy with Second Nature. Maybe Second Nature.
No,
Coffee
Second
was-
Nature is the right name for this, but that name would be perfect for a CB, wouldn't it?
It would be. It would
Yeah.
be. I would definitely be willing to drink that. I wouldn't have as many reservations. I'm just saying, cold brew, instant cold brew. I'm sure it exists. I've seen a few things that I think is right, but yeah, this is what I want in my life.
Hell yeah. Well, that's a good Galaxy brand. Let's start hacking away at it. If any of the listeners in the Second Nature community are in the CPG game and can help us make some progress towards it, might be
I
fun
wonder
little,
if
another
we've,
secret project.
We've got an upcoming pod with the Scratch guys. Maybe we should pitch it on that
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
I'm going to pitch it to Alan.
It'll be like our first product collab.
Just like we pitched ideas on the Strava call, why not?
Hey, could you just incorporate like a podcast player into the app like tomorrow?
I think it's a good idea. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Cool, buddy. So good to jump back on the horn and catch up. Let's close with BPC. You get us started. We
Okay,
haven't done this in forever, it feels like. I
I
guess since the
know.
Pit Viper episode,
Yeah,
which
that was easily the best BPC of all time. By the way,
yeah.
I probably watched that clip like 10 more times after I cut the short form content out of it.
I loved how he was like, yeah, this is just something that like is really inspiring me right now. Just like buy something and then immediately flush it down the toilet. I just find it really, really inspiring.
I want to try to do that at Pit Viper, but in a sustainable way. Oh man, I was rolling. I could not keep it together after that. I mean, you saw, but
It was
oh
perfect.
man, it was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, all BPCs will be judged against that one from here on out. Okay, well, I have a BPC that's like really close to me because actually my friend Garrett, this is sort of an interesting story. He introduced us to Steve Holmberg originally. He was in the same place as Steve and was talking about Second Nature, and then Steve was really interested, and now Steve's one of our number one collaborators. So big shout out to Garrett. Garrett is one of my oldest friends, and he put himself through college building duct tape wallets and selling them. That was his whole thing. He's an incredible artist and just this wizard with just creativity out the wazoo.
Yeah.
Just an awesome dude. And so he basically turned this like duct tape wallet thing into an actual company, and then they started expanding out and doing stuff where like the wallets were made of like different kinds of duct tape and different kinds of material, and they had different like art on them. So the one that I had that I used the longest was like an adult to-do list that had been checked off basically. So it was like this black and white kind of stripy thing. But he had all these different ones. It was sold in Nordstrom. It was just this like awesome, clever startup out of Portland. It had all the hallmarks of like a good Portland brand.
Mm-hmm.
And basically around the time of the financial crisis in 2008, they wound up, like doing something, some financial deal with someone that ended poorly and effectively caused them to have to close down the brand. And then Garrett went into the agency space and kind of went, learned all that stuff, partnered in some agencies and stuff. And now that we're grown-ups and we've been successful doing our own thing, we have the time and resources and space to kind of start doing the stuff that we want to be doing again. And so Garrett relaunched DB Clay, this brand, with a film called Begin Again, which kind of documents the process that he's gone through of, weathering the storm of the first iteration of the brand, moving on into like his life, and then bringing it kind of back out. So it was really fun to watch the video that has all this like archive footage. And Garrett and I had actually collaborated on a film toward the end of DB Clay the first time called Sometimes We're Nice, Sometimes We're Ice, which was like sort of the theme of that moment, of that era. But to see him kind of bring it back is really, really exciting. And I think he's going to do some awesome stuff with it.
You know who else made a film called Begin Again?
I do. I'll link them both in the show notes.
No, that's really cool. I'm excited to check that out. Awesome. Cool. Well, I'll close this down here. You may have noticed, Lutzi, that Free Trail made an announcement of a new partner for the podcast.
Yes.
A new nutrition company that's only been around for 3 years called Never Second. You can see the products surrounding me and also here in my hand. Never Second was founded by a husband and wife team of Bill and Lauren Armstrong. They live on the East Coast. Prior to this, they worked, I think, in sort of like the beauty business. And they came into this nutrition space, which of course is very competitive with a lot of, established incumbent brands. And they have done an amazing job, not only of creating an amazing product, but also building a brand with a really solid, positive reputation in the space. Even like I love like their name and logo and packaging and stuff. That's the type of stuff that I know you and I here on the podcast understand. Like I get a kick out of all the branding stuff, and have come to understand just how important that is, but also more importantly, obviously, is having a great product. So I just wanted to shout out Never Second, the company, who we are very happy to be engaged in partnership with at Free Trail. And this is my favorite product here. This is their passion fruit flavored gels. These things are absolutely delicious. And as I make my 10,000th attempt at a comeback here, I'm back on the training horse, and I've been sucking down these Never Second passion fruit C30 energy gels. So that's my product of the week here.
I feel like maybe there's a future for Never Second and Second Nature.
Yeah,
right?
Never Second Nature. Yeah, they're coming on the Free Trail pod. It might be a good opportunity for a bit of a cross cast, because it is going to be a little bit of a kind of business oriented conversation probably. But we're really grateful to be working with them. They're also sponsoring both of our races, the Big Alta and Gorge Waterfalls, and they're just really solid people. It's actually a funny story. I'll tell you quickly, but they came to realize, I think Jim Walmsley sent them an email. He had been buying their product full price on the website.
Oh my God.
Sent them an email. I was like, hey, can I just get a box or whatever? They're like, hey, yes, of course. And also, can you just be an athlete for us? And so, they also sponsor a lot of the best athletes in the sport, who of course only would trust their performance to the best products. And anyway, so we're grateful to be working with them now.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
This just of course I'm always banging the drum on this, but of course, look, you have so much to offer a brand because you have a media outlet, you have content, you have 2 events to offer up. What it means to partner with Free Trail, it's just well beyond what any singular athlete could ever offer. And this is this is the hill that I'm willing to die on, of athletes need to adopt more than just their race results as what they're bringing to the table with brands. And
but remember, Aaron, I don't have race results anymore.
Well, you don't need them. You're Dylan Bowman.
Well, but I'd like to have them, for God's sakes.
Hey, you'll get them if you want them. All I'm saying is that it's not a requirement anymore.
Yeah.
And also, I think more importantly, the nuance there is that you're not relying on race results.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Of course, I was just making a joke, but no. Thank you for saying that. And if you're a brand and you want to work with Free Trail, hit us up. Anyway, buddy, always great. You're the best.
Always happy to have these bro pods. These are the best.
Any calls to action for the listeners as we sign off here? I guess newsletter, LinkedIn, Slack.
Actually, YouTube is so close to 1,000 subscribers, which is actually kind of a meaningful point for us, because when we cross 1,000 subscribers with 4,000 hours of watch time, which we're pretty close to also, we can actually monetize the YouTube channel. That means when you watch the YouTube, we'll earn a little bit. I mean, it'll be $1 at first, but who cares? So at least we can start that. But actually what's more important than the monetization is we could actually open up a membership on the YouTube, which means that we could do the podcast recording live. So if people wanted to be in that membership, they'd be able to watch us do this live, which I think would be kind of cool. But we basically, when you cross that monetization threshold of 1,000 subscribers, you get a lot more stuff to work with besides the monetization. You get extra tools to make the YouTube channel even better and build it out in a meaningful way. So I think it'd be kind of fun to do these live. I love
live stuff.
But I think that might be really interesting for our community to chip, to say, little add questions or add comments or whatever as we're going, and maybe we throw those in. But we can't do that until we hit 1,000 subscribers. So I think we're 80-ish subscribers shy of it right now, maybe 70. So if you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, go there and give us a subscribe. That'll make a big difference for us.
Awesome. All right. And also leave a comment. Make sure you comment on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, that'll juice the algorithm too. We like it.
All right, episode 73 in the bag. Big thank you to Second Nature audience. For Aaron Lucia, I am Debo. See you soon.